Hello, and welcome to our lecture. Today, I want to spend a little bit of time just talking about civilizations. So far, we have discussed the origins of humans, the development and migration out of Africa, the Paleolithic era, moving into the Neolithic era. Um, and critical to this change from Paleolithic to Neolithic will be the development of human civilizations. So, we're going to take some time to unpack this term, know what it means, look at some characteristics, see where civilizations are thriving throughout the Neolithic period, and then maybe stumble on an extra credit assignment to see if you're paying close attention. All right. So I will post this in Canvas. I am trying to make this brief, so I'm not going to go over every slide in detail. You can refer back to this at any point. But I do want to make sure you have a good idea of how and when this develops. All right. So, a civilization. Best defined, a civilization is the formation of a highly complex and organized group of people. Typically, a key component of civilization is the creation of cities. But think about what you need to have before cities can flourish, right? You have to have a access to fresh water. So anytime we see the development of civilizations, we are going to find, let me click over here. Sorry. Fresh water sources, right? So one of the first civilizations we will see will develop in the Middle East between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, right? I mentioned this last week. We will see civilizations develop along major river systems like the Indus River throughout, obviously, North Africa. Oh, sorry. Well, I will get to that in a minute. Maps are useful. Sorry, I didn't have a better one there. And China as well. Every city we see develop will develop along first a river or very close to it. So you have to have fresh water. That's the first and foremost. You have to have some level of agriculture, right? So Paleolithic peoples, the people who are around before civilization, are migratory. They do not have accumulation of stuff. You don't want stuff if you're moving all around. You are not planting your food mostly. You are just eating what you can find. You spend most of your time just looking for food. That will change with civilizations, as civilizations are going to really be based on agriculture. The other aspect of civilization that we will see is laws and governments, right? So Paleolithic peoples don't have written laws for the most part. Now, I will say this, all civilizations do not have written laws, right? Written laws are one thing. You do not need writing to have a civilization. You do not. And there are plenty of civilizations that emerge without a written form of communication. What they might have are symbols. They might have explanations of power that are encrypted on the side of a building. And they certainly have laws, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily written down and codified. So, although writing is a characteristic of civilization, you can have civilizations without writing. It's not necessary, but it is a characteristic. Okay. The other thing to think about is taxes. Taxes are a characteristic of civilization. There is a idea that one must pay to maintain the government. So this is a very ancient idea. Again, a characteristic of civilization itself. Excuse me. The other things are professionalization of jobs and technology. So, in a city just like today, there will be a specialization of labor. You will be able to find a variety of people doing a variety of things, right? So, this specialization of labor different tools, different knowledge that includes building things such as pyramids and structures, architecture. All of these things are very much interrelated and they are demonstrative of a civilization. Hierarchy and social class. So, this is one of the very interesting things that we see develop with agriculture. And you might think about, again, how all of this is related. If you are near a freshwater source, you don't want to leave it. If you need that freshwater source for your animals to feed your people, you are going to defend that territory. So we really see the creation of militaries. You also see with differentiation of labor, right, and the need to maintain a specific area, the development of hierarchy. What skills are most prized in society? How is power defined? And what we see develop, and again, not just in one place, but in a variety of civilizations across the ancient world, is that most of them are hierarchical in scope, right? Meaning there are different social classes divided by invisible and some visible barriers, with a ruling class on top that sort of has infinite power, however defined in that civilization. So we will find, right, in civilizations across the globe, rulers and priests, farmers, right, because these are agricultural, civilization is based on agriculture, some form of slavery or servitude. Um, there will also be the creation of religion. So, what this means is Paleolithic peoples, do they have a belief in something? Yes. Do they practice religion? No. And this is the difference. Religion is, you can think of religion as a defined square that has all of the answers for you. So everything is answered. Spirituality, perhaps other forms of thought aren't as sort of formulatedly compositional. So that's what religion is. Religion and government will be very closely tied together in these first examples of civilizations that emerge around the world. Most people will claim that their ability to rule comes from God, right? We see this in Egypt, we see this in China. Of course, it's going to have different concepts in the context of Egypt. This is known as Pharaoh. Pharaoh is more than just a ruler; he is a symbol of Egyptian um, religion as well. In China, the concept of the mandate of heaven, that the gods or ancestors give power to a selected person or family, um, legitimizes their power. So, um, people also believed in most of these examples of civilizations that that there are gods of life, death, marriage, and weather. And you spend a great deal of your time trying to please um, these gods, and in doing so, also your government. So writing becomes an aspect of civilization that we see in many places. And again, most of these earliest forms of writing are very boring. They are basically tax ledgers. And this is an example of cuneiform, wedge shaped script. It's developed around 33 BCE by the Mesopotamians. And there are about 500 wedges making up this Sumerian alphabet. Other examples are pictographs. So we are most familiar with hieroglyphics used by both Egyptians and by Nubians, by the way, at different points in time. To communicate ideas. So people are keeping pictures, people are keeping alphabets. China also uses numbers. So a number of ways that ideas are becoming codified or written down. So one of the earliest examples of civilization, again, emerges here in modern day Iraq, in between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. So this is going to allow for agriculture to develop. And this is where we also see, and we'll talk about this next week, some of the earliest laws produced in human history that are steeped in social inequality, and really set up a system that will remain quite unequal. Um, across the Tigris Euphrates rivers, we see first the emergence of variety city states. So all of these city states are independently run. They are not unified by some sort of government the way we would see, cities across America unified now. Every city is its own sort of entity. Um, and out of that, as you can imagine, we're going to also see so many examples of warfare that start to emerge, right? As we start to see what happens when city states even sort of um, independently decide to come together as one, or what happens when these city states start to say, hey, you've got better access over here. I'm going to get an army and invade you. All right. You are tasked this week with writing about civilizations that are developing along the Nile, specifically Egypt and Nubia. So they are not only located in sort of the same geographic space in terms of access to the Nile Valley, but it also means that they sort of have access to this broader Mediterranean world. So some of the same types of imagery that we see in Egypt, we find here. There will be, right, many examples of Egypt effectively sort of conquering parts of Nubia, taking it over, as well as Nubia ruling Egypt. There is a time known as the era of the Black Pharaohs, where Nubia has colonized and taken over all of this. So, because of that, right, there's a great deal of cross cultural contact, there's a great deal of shared ideas about religion, there's a similarity in architecture, there's a similarity in social structure. Again, they are fueled by the similar ideas that are literally flooding along the Nile. Um, this is a picture of the Normal palette, and what it depicts is the unification of upper and lower Nile Valley, which then in Egyptian sort of mythology creates the modern kingdom of Egypt. It also sort of defines Egyptian rule through dynasties or through family of rulers. So rulership is going to be defined in the Egyptian context through families. So family marriage is very important. Who's going to lead is very important. How power is understood and passed down. And as you can imagine, if power is situated within the family, especially if you've ever watched any really good soap operas or dramas on TV, right? If power is in the family, people are going to fight in the family for that said power. So those two things are also very much interrelated. Another place we see the development of civilization is in India, along the Indus River Valley. What we see here is the development of a religion that is one of the most rigid examples of social hierarchies that develop, right? The Hindu caste system, again, a merger between government and religion and hierarchy, and one that really sort of allows the poorest of the poor to remain poor according to religious ideas. Very interesting. Also throughout China, right? So China is also going to be a place that we see one of the oldest civilizations emerging around 6,000 years ago. Again, also along these two rivers, the Yellow River and the Yangtze River. And a ruling class is going to develop that has access to a variety of better tools, weapons, and goods. And that also will create a very highly militaristic society. All right. So that's just my very brief introduction into civilizations. You should dive into Egypt and Nubia. Um, by watching some of the videos that are posted in the module this week. But if you want extra credit, define and identify 5 characteristics of a civilization, and then make an argument based on what you've heard this week and what you're reading about which ones you think create the more enduring civilizations over time. Post it in the extra credit module in Canvas, and I look forward to reading your responses.